Hello, welcome to my Crusader Kings modding video. So, I'm worried that this video might be quite long, so I'm going to go over stuff somewhat quickly as possible, try and get through what I want to get through, which is first I'm going to explain how modding works in Crusader Kings 3, and then specifically what we're doing for the Disc Sword HRE game, which is fun. And then I'll actually do an example, maybe two, of the characters that we're adding so we can see how it works. Okay, let's jump straight into it. If we look where the game is installed, so through Steam, program files, Steam apps, common, Crusader Kings 3. If you're not aware, you can open this quite quickly by going to Steam on the game, manage, browse local files. That opens it in Windows Explorer. That's pretty handy. Everything that we care about is in this game directory in here. So in here is lots and lots of text documents and other files which describe everything in the game, all the characters, titles, events, pretty much everything. And a mod either overwrites these or adds to them. And there's lots and lots of stuff here, but we're only interested in a few of them. Mostly, what's in common describes lots of things, as you can see from the directory names. Dynasties, traits, characters, events, and we're only interested in those first few that I mentioned. And the other is mostly in history. So this describes what happens in history. So like when you start the game in 1066, this describes what's happened up to that point. It's the record of all the characters, when they were born and when they died, and when they inherited certain titles. So that when you start in 1066, that's how the game knows who owns which titles. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so there's tons of stuff in there, and you may need to refer back to this at some point. So if you need to see how something works or something is already implemented, it'll be in here somewhere in a fairly sensibly named place. I mean, almost everything that you're going to care about is in common, and then you may be looking for cultures. So there's culture in here. Then there you've got cultures which describe all the cultures in their groups, or name lists, names of people, lots of stuff. So there's probably a bit too much to think about there. So now I'm going to jump over to our mod instead. So instead of in the install directory, in your My Documents under Paradox Interactive Crusader Kings 3, there's a mod directory that all the mods go into, and we're working with this Sword HRE Landgrab mod. So this folder and this file, this mod file, which I've not actually looked at, just describes the mod, and that was created for me by the launcher. Don't need to worry about that because we can get hold of this. I'm probably just racing over everything here, but I don't know, ask me questions to explain stuff deeper. But I want to focus on the mod here. So, as much directories, these first two, this .git and .idea, are mostly for me. The .git is, it's Git, which is source control, which is for code, for tracking changes over time, and that's what I'm using to store the mod on GitHub. And that's there to merge in changes, and basically, if you're a coder, you know what source control is, and if you're not, then I suppose I'd describe it a bit like Dropbox. You can chuck stuff in Dropbox, and it's stored in the cloud, and it also keeps track of changes. So there's different revisions as you change the files. That's basically what Git is. And so I can use that to roll back if I make any mistakes and it's all gone horribly wrong. But mostly, probably don't worry about it. And the same for this idea directory. Don't worry about that at all. That's just my tool that I'll show you shortly. And it stores its settings in there. So these two are not part of the mod, really. So you can ignore them. So actually what we're looking at is we've got this common, graphics, history, and localization directories. And another descriptor again, and again, that this IML file is part of this idea thing, so you can totally ignore that. But really, what you care about is these four directories. Now, these are a file structure matching what's in the game common directory. So in our mods common directory, we've got a few directories here, and they're matching what's over here in common, a few of them. So yeah, coat of arms is coat of arms over here. And if we're looking at coat of arms directory, there's quite a few in the base game, but all we care about is this further coat of arms. And then you'll notice that we have this O1 landed titles file, which is in there. So by having this in the mod, that overrides the one in the base game. So it almost doesn't matter anymore what's in there. The game's going to use this version instead because it's in our mod, which is like applied on top of the game. In addition to that, we've got all of these files, which are ones I've created, which contain a single coat of arms, and you can sort of guess from the names who they're for. And we'll look at those. And because these do not match something in the base game, it just adds them in as well, in addition to what's there. And that's basically how the modding works at all levels. So like if I go back to common, dynasties, there's a bunch of text files here, which are all new, because they're not going to match anything that's in the base game. So if we look here in dynasties, there's just this 00 something and 01 something. Now the naming probably matters just for like the order that they are loaded into the game. So like, because these start with 00 and 01, I expect they are loaded first, and then these loaded afterwards, and that just matters if like you have the same ID in different files, whichever comes last will be what's used, I assume. But for our purposes, it doesn't really matter, so we can basically name them whatever we want. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of files. I'll go through them all. So starting from the top, we've got common in there, we've got coat of arms, and a bunch of coats of arms. If you were to look at these, that is basically what people are creating from their coat of arms designer in the game. Yeah, DNA data again is... Now this one's a bit tricky. I will leave back to this because this is mostly the same as the copy DNA button that you get from the game, but it's not exactly the same, so I'll have to go over that. Dynasties are quite straightforward. So the key thing to talk about really is this ID, which I will talk about. But within there, you've got these squiggly brackets denoting a block. So wherever you see an opening bracket like this, there must be a closing bracket that matches it. And in there, you've got a bunch of properties, which speak for themselves. The name is the name that you see in the game. The culture is the culture now. The culture is normally what you expect it to be. So, you know, Franconian's Franconian, Sicilian is Sicilian. There's just a couple which are not the same as the label in the game. The only one I've come across so far is Scots. So you see Scots in the game, but in the game files, it's actually Scottish. Now, you can either do this by trial and error, you could just put in what you think it is and hope it works, or you can go and see what it actually is in the game files. You can go to where the main files are. So in this case, we're looking culture. Then, unless you've got a special way of searching through these, which I do, you'd have to sort of guess where which your culture group is. If you know, Scottish is... Nugget's going to kill me. Is it North Germanic? Is it... you're probably shouting at me, whoever's watching this. West Germanic? It looks like it, doesn't it? Because we've got English, Anglo-Saxon, Old Saxon, Scottish. There you go. So yeah, just because of that ID, that you know that is the name. And there's a whole bunch of data here, which I've not really looked into, but you can sort of guess looking at it. Like you've got different ethnicities. That's quite interesting. These will be a weighting probably for how likely it is to be each of these. Let's not worry about that. I'm going into too much detail there. So to go back to here, there's up to like 4 things that you see in the dynasty file. Let's look at Chaos Evilus. No. Terry tenants? No. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a prefix. So yeah, there's four. There's a name, a culture, and a motto is optional. The game will auto-generate a motto if we don't set this, but you can say set a motto. And by doing that, to do that, you just invent a ID, which can be text, it seems. I think all the IDs can be text, although I've not done that, which would help. So I've used a naming convention where it's just the Discord name underscore whatever. So underscore dynasty, oh, it's the way around here. So it's motto cobra for cobras. Now the prefix is the prefix in the name. So in this case, the dynasty is actually D Capua. So the prefix, this is referencing another ID, and it's like dynasty name prefix is that din p underscore and then the actual word most of the time. So these are defined in a file, which we'll go and look at. Actually in a localization file, which is like the translations. So we only care about English. So we only have English. And then in here we've got this Discord mottos, L English YAML file. So a YAML file is a text file, but it's got a slightly special structure where white space sort of is used instead of these opening and closing tags. Don't ask me why they mixed the two, but you know, you could use one of them. But if you look in this file, it should somewhat be straightforward. The L English is describing the language. Then you've got that key. So motto cobra. I'm supposed to be looking at the prefixes, aren't I? Okay, well here's the mottos. You've got the key and then :0. I'm assuming this is like the line number starting from 0. So they'll look like that, space, and then in quotes, your motto. That's quite a long one, so it does get truncated in a few places in the game. Okay, there's the mottos. Not what I was supposed to be looking at. The only really important thing with this is that space is actually important. A bit weird. And this is the only type of file where the file name is important. So we've invented this file. It's called Discord mottos L English, and the fact it ends with L_English is necessary for the game to know that it's a localization file for the English language. Okay, that's mottos. But I was talking about prefixes. So under localization English dynasties, there's another localization YAML file. And here you see a similar thing, but with all these dynasty prefix bits of text. Because if one's not here, you can just add it in, which I've done for a couple. But this DI, I don't know how you pronounce it really, was already there, so it's this, and it shows you that's what the text is. So anyone with this, or a dynasty with this prefix, would name people with their first name, space, that, and then the dynasty name. So that's how prefixes work. And sometimes you need to add them into here, but most of the time you don't. The ones that already exist are all named as you would expect them to be. You know, they all match the text every time, I think. Yeah. And that's everything in a dynasty up to these 4 properties. But prefix and motto are optional. Culture might be, but I'm not sure, so I'm always specifying it. We'll see how that works. Now, the one I've not talked about is this ID here. So everything in the game has an ID. Well, yeah, everything's got an ID. It looks like everything has to be numeric rather than alphanumeric, although it then seems they do use some alphanumeric IDs. So it would have been easier if we could have named this like Cobra Dynasty. But either that didn't work, or I got something else wrong, and I'm just sticking with the numeric IDs, which is what the documentation shows you anyway. So what I've done is I've started them all with 777, so they're quite a high number, to make sure that they're higher than anything in the base game. And then there's a number which matches the row number in the Google Doc that we're creating these from. So Cobras is row 8, so I'm using that number 8. And then the 00 is for everything within Cobra's IDs that we're creating. So it's 00 for Dynasty, 01 for its character, 02 for a spouse, 03 and onwards for children. And as long as they're unique, it doesn't matter what they are, but that's just the convention that I'm using, so I know what I'm doing each time. Okay, going through the rest of what's in here. Common. So coat of arms makes sense, I hope. DNA, I again will come back to. Dynasties and landed titles. Now, landed titles is one of the files that we're overwriting from the game. And why is this here? This is here to change the, not the name, but the color of any areas. So Aussie Viking asked for Bohemia to be color different. So that's going to be D for Duchy. Bohemia. So that's there. So whatever color this first color was before, I've changed it. This is a red, green, blue out of 255 coloring numbers. So this color 2 is white because they're all 255, whereas this is like mostly blue, fair bit of green, medium amount of red, and that's a sort of sky blue color. And that's the color you see. That's the only thing I've changed in here. Probably the only thing I will change, actually, to be fair, I changed the Kingdom of Bohemia's color as well to a slightly darker blue. But that's all I've done in here. So let's close that. So what else have we got in the mod? We have graphics, portraits, portrait modifiers. There's 3 files in here, and they're to do with the DNA. And this is the tricky bit of the DNA, that the hairs and beards don't quite work as a copy and paste. Instead, you have to go and put something into these beards and hairstyles files for the beard or hairstyle. Or if they don't have a beard, you put something in this O1 beards. So I will go through that when I do a proper example. Okay, so that's all that's in that graphics directory. Now history is kind of key, because we've either got characters and we've got a file for every character. Let's look at me here. This one makes sense. So I'm row 12. So my ID is 7771201. So the name is the character's name. The DNA references the ID in the DNA file. So I'll just show you that briefly. Go back to common DNA, Zinj DNA. So that's this bit here, so I'm putting that in manually. The dynasty matches that dynasty ID. Sexuality, I am setting to heterosexual unless somebody requests otherwise. Then you've got your skills of those 6, and that's the base values. Religion probably wants to be Catholic. Culture wants to match your dynastic culture, and whatever you've picked. Now, some people are requesting different culture, and I've done that. I've gone for Sardinian because I'm planning to expand into Sardinia. But if they haven't specified, what I've been doing is just launching the game and seeing the culture of the character that they're replacing and using that. Now, traits are done with a separate line for each trait. The education is done like this, where it's education underscore the name of the skill. So any of the 5, other than prowess skills, and then 1 to 4. So it's not like naive appeaser or whatever. It is education, intrigue, 1, 2, 3, 4, or education, diplomacy, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now the rest do almost always match the name. So temperate, Saeed, seducer, pure-blooded, with underscores and in lowercase clearly. But not all of them. As you can see, beauty good 1 here is comely or pretty for female characters. And you can have beauty good 2 and beauty good 3 and beauty bad 1, bad 2, bad 3, and it's the same for all those traits with different levels to them. As with anything, if you're not sure what the trait is called, you may have to go and find it in the base files. So we would come back to here, game, common, traits. There should be, so there's traits, and then you've got the 00 traits, which is a file describing the traits, and you can search through here. So what I had to do earlier was family hierarch, because that wasn't family hierarch. And I can't quite remember how I found it. But if we look for family, there's this family first. It turns out it's that. So like family first is the family hierarch trait. And I don't know if there's an easy way of these being listed anywhere. I don't think they're on the traits wiki page, which is a shame. So maybe there's a little bit of work there sometimes. But once you've got that, you can list out all the traits, and it's just one line for each trait. So the education, the personality, and the other traits. Now this disallow random traits equals yes wants to be there, otherwise the game will fill in more traits, mostly for the personality, if it's not there. So like if you don't have any personality traits, or you just have one like I do, it will probably add another 1 or 2, unless that's there. And then there's one of these date blocks. So that's a date, it's year, month, day, which is the superior date format. And this defines when the character's born. So in my case, I want to be 18 years old in the 1066 start. So I just set the year to 1048 to make that work. So almost everyone in the mod is born on January the 1st, which doesn't matter too much. The 1066 start is sometime in September, I think. I'm not sure. But in there you put birth, yes, and that would specify that's when the character's born. You can put death equals yes, and that would say when they're dead, but that's not what we're going to want for our mod. And also in these date blocks, you can say when you get married to someone. Such as, I know Major Byte's married. No, that's the DNA file. History, characters, Major Byte. So with the married characters, I don't think this matters, but I actually listed the spouse first. So it looks very much the same. Weirdly, gender's done this way, where it's female equals yes for a female, or you just don't have that line for a male. Again, name, sexuality, religion, culture, and then you've got these 2 date blocks saying born in this year, and then on this date adds the spouse of this character's ID, which you can see highlighted is the main character here. And the same on that one. Now, I don't think it's actually necessary on both. I think this might work if it was just here's a character that exists, and then on the main character or one of them we have the add spouse. I think it probably works either way. It might need to be that this character is defined first, and then this one adds the spouse, and that's why I've put the spouse first. I had a lot of issues with making the spouses work, so this works. So I would continue to do that. And then also there are children. So looks the same. You've got a name, dynasty, religion, culture, but you've also got a father and mother referencing the IDs for those characters. Any traits that you like. I've put twins on a few, and then the birth. And again, working backwards. So this one's going to be about 2 years old when the game starts. The way it is in September. Don't ask me why. And that's pretty much the characters. So in my case, I just have me, not married, but I do have 2 children. And so in this case, there's just a father, which works. Don't ask me how it works, but it works. And you can see I'm being incredibly choosy by having the Saeed trait. And I recommend you do that in the future. It's just really cheesy. Or we house rule that away, because it's really strong. Every descendant gets it, and everyone in your religion has a better opinion of you. And it doesn't really make sense for Christianity. Okay, so that's characters. And I think that pretty much just leaves history titles. And so at this point we have the dynasty defined, the coat of arms, the DNA, the character, but they won't appear in the game unless they say, because even though they've got like the birth date, where would they be in the world? These files define the different titles in the game and who inherits them on what dates. So you'll notice there's a bunch of files for the kingdoms in the game, and I've not really talked about this yet, but the titles have this naming convention of like K underscore name for a kingdom, D underscore for a duchy, C underscore for a county. I think there's baronies. Well, there is baronies as well, and empires with an E underscore. That's where the other titles is in. So let's look in there. So in other titles, we've got the papal states. Okay. What we're interested in is the Holy Roman Empire. Ignore this for a second. There we go. So here's the Holy Roman Empire's title right from the year 20. There's some history in here. And how's this work? Yeah, here we go. So to assign this to someone, you, on a certain date, set the holder to be the character's ID. I've even put a comment in here. So anyway, you see a hash symbol, everything that and everything after it is then ignored by the game. So you can put whatever you want as comments, or you can use it to like make it ignore lines that you're not using. So usually what I do is come into these files and look at the last change. And so, there was already a 1056 510 entry. So I just changed the holder from what it was, which is the current Kaiser in the 1066 game, changed it to Haringzord's ID, and now when we start the game, Haringzord's character has the Holy Roman Empire. So you can set the holder, you can change the development level, not done that anywhere, but the important other one is you can change the liege through one of these two, like this. So on this date, the kingdom of Orthodox. Is there like an Orthodox Church kingdom? Didn't know that. Liege is set to the Empire of Byzantium, and so that's how we've done the county that we've added to the HRE, as well as adding the character as a holder on a certain date. We've also set the liege to be E underscore HRE. So that's important. You'll see me doing it in an example, which I'll do in a second. The only other thing to mention is I think there's another localization file in here. So we have, titles. So if anyone wants to change the name of a title, it's in here somewhere under that same naming convention. So we changed Bohemia, the Duchy of Bohemia, to Strya. So there's like the name here, there's the noun, and there's also the adjective version. So I also changed the Kingdom of Bohemia as well, which is also Strya, just like Bohemia. That's everything. Okay, so I will somewhat quickly try and go through an example. But rather than doing it here, I've been using an IDE, which is this thing, which is basically like a combined file browser and text editor. Makes up a whole bunch of things easier, makes it easier to deal with Git as well. So I'll do the rest through this, but everything that I'm doing is the same as doing it by finding it in Windows Explorer and just editing the text file with the text editor of your choice. So, I've got a whole bunch of messages here from Haringzord, which I'll respond to later. So we've been working from the responses to the character creator form, and for this example, let's add Hindus. So I've mostly been doing it in order, so I'd start with the dynasty. So let's create the dynasty file. Most of the time I just copy and paste an existing one, so I name them after the character. So we've got, rather the Discord name. So we've got Hindus dynasty, the 777, and then he is number 17. straight after Cruzo. So the name is this, Goldhand. There's no prefix there, but where there has been a prefix, like Mac or F or it, I've been setting that as a prefix. So in this case, name Goldhand, no prefix, let's get rid of that. Culture, who is he? Okay, well, he's specified he wants to be Bavarian. That makes things a little bit easier, so I can just put Bavarian, and I hope that works. I'm going to assume he's got a motto, so we'll put motto and this. Go and see if he has set one. Yeah, of course he has. Everybody wants a motto. So we invent this key, go over to the mottos file, add a new line here, that 0 quotes, paste that in, whatever that says. That's the motto sorted out. In fact, that is the dynasty sorted out. But as well as the dynasty, you want the dynasty's coat of arms. I'll just do this manually rather than a copy and paste job. So Indus coat of arms.txt, create that file, and then we'll copy what's in here, paste that in. Now, importantly, this ID here needs to match the dynasty ID for the game to know to link the two together. So I just go and copy the dynasty ID here and replace that. So now the dynasty ID this has this coat of arms. And he's said no to using this for his primary title. But if he had said yes, what we would do, it would find which of these is the primary title. Let's assume it's Innsbruck. And also in the coat of arms directory here, there's this landed titles file, and then there's the same thing for all the titles. As you can see, I've just changed the Duchy of Lower Lorraine's coat of arms to something there, which is what this colour down the side is indicating. So did I say county of Innsbruck is there, and so if we did want to use his coat of arms, we'd paste it in there. Rather, you'd want the contents of that block. So it would look like that. The indentation's all over the place, but don't worry about that. But he says no, let's not have the coat of arms as on the primary title, which is totally fine. And with that, the dynasty is done. It should work. So now we'll create the character. So you notice here I've got this program that I'm using, this IDE. I've also got the base files open in here for me to quickly browse and search through. It's mostly so I could search through like all subdirectories at once for some text, which is quite useful. Whatever. Let's create a character, come down to history, characters. I will copy myself. Actually, it's just by checking if he wants a spouse. No spouse, no children. Great, that's easy. Let's copy me. But make it Indus. And then this ID wants replacing with his, which is 77717. Do a find and replace everywhere for that. So now the main character is pointing to my dynasty. Need to give it the right name, of course, which is Tungdil. DNA we haven't created yet, but it will be Indus DNA. In fact, let's do that now. Let's do the Indus DNA. Yeah, let's do the Indus DNA and come back to this. So I did mention the DNA is a bit of a pain. It's a little bit more involved than just copying and pasting it. So copy and paste one of the others. And you'll see in here you've got the ID again. So yeah, that's an alphabetic ID rather than numeric. I don't know why. Some work and some don't, but there we are. And on the form, we have a whole bunch of DNA here. So what I'm going to do sorry about the noise of the dog in the background, is copy and paste that into Notepad, or Notepad++ rather. Basically because it looks mostly the same, but not quite the same. It's got this ID thing here, it's got this entity 0 there, I'm not sure what that's for. It's got this override section for the custom hair, not a beard, which is interesting. Because sometimes you see like custom beard, no beard. I'll talk about that. So what I've been doing is going to the genes block and just cutting out all those genes and replacing them into the genes that are here. So that should do. Going to indent that back a bit. Make sure the gender there is correct. And that is this file done, because the custom hair and beard needs to be separate. So that's up here. And so if you remember, under this graphics portrait modifiers directory, there's these extra files, the beards and hairstyles. Now in this case, we want this custom hairstyle, male hair Western 02. So I will open the hairstyles scripted characters here, find that hairstyle. And so what we need to do is, there is this weight section, and then here there's this like the base weight of how likely you are to get this hairstyle. And then there's these modifiers, and so in this case it adds 200, which basically means they will definitely have this hairstyle if these things are correct. And it basically says, or what I want to do is copy and paste that, but set it to the character and then the character ID. And now that character ID will have that hairstyle. Whoops, that's the female hairstyle. Whoops, that would have been embarrassing. There we go. So beards works the same, where you've got these different beards that you can specify, and these modifiers. So you can see there's like, I think that's Crusoe's character there. That's that one. Some of them don't have these modifiers already, so you have to go and copy it from somewhere else. But it basically needs to be that text exactly with the character ID for the right character. The only special case I'm aware of is if you want no beard. Instead, you open this O1 beards.txt file, and then there's this has no beard, and then here there's basically the same thing where we have this has no beard, and you add a modifier to say this character has this thing to make sure they don't have a beard. So that's a bit of a special case. So when you've done that, then you've sorted out the DNA, and so it's just these overrides. They're a bit of a special case, a bit of a pain to deal with. Although you see here, actually, the type is boy rather than male, which might mean something. So, oops, let's open up Indus DNA. Instead of type male, let's type boy. He must be quite young. Right, back to the character file, because that makes me realise we've not done the age yet. So going through these in order, he's heterosexual. Then you've got these skills, so if these are filled out correctly in the sheet, as in they have put the base values, then you can copy and paste them. If they have put the final values, you'll have to do a bit of jiggery pokery and adjust them once you see them in the game, pretty much. So, diplomacy is 1, intrigues 5, martials 8. Learning 0. It's an interesting mix of skills in a lot of characters. Stewardship's 8 and prowess 4. Okay, so religion, Catholic, culture, wants to be Bavarian? I'm going to refer back to the dynasty to make sure. Yep, Bavarian. Again, if you're not sure at the start, I would look in the game to see what they are. For his traits, his education is education intrigue 1. So it's quite handy to have the part in brackets. That's based on what you want over here. No education and personality traits, as the character is still an adolescent. Okay. But they have the dwarf. Now, genius is an interesting one because it's like this beauty good 1. It is intellect good 3, maybe? I'm not sure, so let's check. So I'm going to look in the base files, I'm going to open traits, I'm going to look at all the traits under there. For intellect, yeah, there's intellect good 1, 2, 3 in there, so that must be the genius trait. Hail is similar. I don't know what it is, so I'll do a similar thing. Is it like body good? No. Tell you what, underscore good 1. Physique good 1 is hail, I think. Bastard, I'll check if bastard's bastard because there's different kinds of bastards. There's legitimized bastards and bastard founders. Well, it's just bastard. Said that word a lot now. And bossy, which I think I can just put as bossy. Oh. Not gonna check. Right, so how old is this character? He's 13. So with 1066 start, we'll be born in 53, I think. Yes. And no children. Let's go with those. Right. That is everything apart from the titles, which is the Count of Innsbruck and Leans, which I can do from here. But normally I'm not sure what the titles under that character are. So, for example, well, Duchy of Lothian, that we just did. So to find out what they are, I would normally just launch the game and look at them. So I'll do that now. You probably want to set up a shortcut to launch the game in debug mode. It helps a bit for this. So to do that, you create a shortcut to the actual executable in the binaries directory where the game is, and then after the quotes, put space dash debug underscore mode. And then when you launch that shortcut, it launches straight into the game and has a bunch of debug information, which is basically there for modding in our case. Go to pick a ruler. Actually, no, I'll do this for this character. So we've got the Count of Innsbruck and Lien's lines. I don't know. Where is that? I don't know. Let's use the find title. Innsbruck. It's there. Leans. Now the reason I'm doing this is if you hover over it in debug mode, you can see at the bottom of this tooltip, which you can't get onto, these like IDs for the titles. So you've got B Innsbruck, the barony, C Innsbruck, the county, and then the duchy, kingdom, and empire. So they're obviously the de jure like tree of titles for this. And what I'm really after is the fact, what is the ID? So it's C Innsbruck and C Liens, and they almost always match. Not always, but almost always. But I would use this like if I was creating the Duke of Upper Lorraine, which I've lost track of. There he is. What I just do is start the game, look at his titles, and see, he's got that county, however you pronounce that one, Nancy, that one, and that one. I'd be using those. I need to know what they are called. So I've lost wherever I was. Innsbruck. Dear. What a disaster. There's a find. I don't know where it is. But it's Bavarian, so you'd think it's around here somewhere. Oh, this is embarrassing. Innsbruck. Okay. Yeah, you figure out what your titles are. that's changed. No. Like if we'd changed the coat of arms for the county, the primary title, you'd hopefully see that here by now, but we didn't change it. So anyway, come out of this. And what we need to do is find those titles in the history titles. Oh god, I forgot what kingdom it's in already. We don't have the file. So we're not doing anything in this kingdom yet. They're all organized by kingdom. So we'll go to the base files, go to history, titles, find it in here. There it is. It's in Kingdom of Bavaria, of course it is. So I'm going to copy that across. Not sure about that. And then in here, find the entries. So County of Innsbruck, and then normally what I do is look for the most recent date. Oh, perfect. We've got 1066 date, January the 1st. So here we just set the ID to be whatever it was. Was it 17? Yeah, 1701. If the last one was quite old, I don't know if it matters. You can just add an extra date block in for 1066 if you're not sure. Like some of them have been held by someone for like 60 years, so I didn't set it in case it goes wrong if the character isn't born yet. But most of the time that's not a problem. And Leeds. Again, just put that there. 701. And with that, I think we're done. Obviously, that's the key part, is to put them in the history so that they're assigned to that character at the start of the game. I tend to just go through this to make sure I think I've got everything. So it's male, he should be Bavarian, 13 years old. He's got those traits, skills, no spouse, and that motto. So just launch the game and check on that. Doesn't have to be in debug mode now, but it could help. Wow, this is going to be quite a long video, so I don't think I'll do 2 examples. And now, if we find wherever they are in the game, I should have learned by now. There we have a child dwarf with a cool gold hand crest. There's the motto. In fact, let's just start the game as them. They were genius, perfect, hail, dwarf, bastard, bossy. Yes, I think that was everything. These values are modified quite a bit because they are genius, which is the best trait. Oh, that's interesting. Not a legitimate member. Maybe I should just make him a legitimized bastard. Yeah, I think I will, just in case this goes horribly wrong. Or hinders here. Otherwise, it all looks correct. Yeah. I think that's all the traits. Right. So in the mod, look at his character. We have bastard. When I was looking at the traits before, let's see, common traits. Here we go. Bastard, legitimized bastard. Let's use that. So there can be a bit of trial and error involved in these, although I'm doing pretty well avoiding that for the most part now. To experience, I guess. But hopefully that's it. That's everything done. So just check by starting a new game, picking that character. remember exactly where it is. Okay, there's no teardrop here anymore, so I think that will work. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done. Come out of here. I have then been highlighting that row green to show that they are done. So, anyone watching this, if you're going to be chipping into this mod, the thing then to sort out is the changes to the mod that we're making. I can mostly deal with that myself. So, like, if you take the mod as it like currently is on GitHub, which is here, which you can send a link to. I'm pushing to this all the time, so you can see 1 hour ago I made a change. If you take the most recent version by just downloading it as a zip, then make your changes and then send it to me, I should be okay to merge that in. So obviously the majority of files are new. You can sort of see from my tool I'm using here, the green ones are new files. So the issues would come pretty much in like the hairstyles, beards, and mottos, or more importantly, the titles here. We've added the Kingdom of Bavaria. So you may be adding other titles or changing titles in the Kingdom of Bavaria. And then there'd be, a conflict of changes if I had also changed it since. I think I can deal with that if you're not familiar with Git. And if you are familiar with Git, that would be amazing, and we can do it properly, because that's what it's supposed to be for. Is for resolving conflicts when you change the same files. That's the whole thing is designed for. So yeah, because that exists, I can probably figure out the right set of changes overall. I'm trying to think if there's any other gotchas. So the traits can catch you out. The culture, I go and look up in the game, the culture probably won't catch you out. I suppose the thing to mention is, if something has a word and you're not sure why, you can go to the game files. No, you can't. You go to where the mod is. You go to your documents, Paradox Interactive, Crusade Kings 3, and instead there's a logs directory. In there, there's an error log. And if you look at that, it gives you a bunch of errors. And we actually have tons of errors already, which isn't good. But I think most of these it's ignoring somewhat. Although these are actually like base files. But at the start of here, we see stuff. The Cruzo DNA file has a bunch of errors. So I might need to look at that and work through that. The RNOG files in the wrong text format, which it will try and work through, which I think it is doing. The raster DNA file is finding the wrong token, like a closing quote or something. But I think it's working for it. They are working, but there are errors in here. So I guess what I'm saying is, I expect there to already be errors, but you may see something against ones that you've created if it's not working. The most important one is like, say you put a trait in and the trait doesn't exist. You'll get an error in here saying like unknown trait XYZ, and that will help you realize, oh, it's not called family hierarchy, it's called something else. And then you have to go and figure out what it is. So there's an error log, and that's the only other useful thing that I've come across so far. I've managed to make the game crash sometimes, so that's why I'm now using Git, so I can roll back my changes if I massively stuff it up somehow. Otherwise, what's in here? Oh, there is something else in here. No, I did mention there's this landed title, so I've used this to change the color. The localization's got the titles in there, so we use that to change the name. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. And this video is coming up on an hour, which is way longer than I wanted it to be. So I will wrap it up there rather than doing another example. I'll just browse through this really quickly, see if anything Seems annoying that someone's asked for. Probably not. No, the renames. No stuff. I think Haringzord asked for something, which I don't know if I can do. Yeah, rename the Duke title to Lord. I'm going to look and see if I can do that. That would be quite fun. I hope that works. We will see. It might need to be like done through the culture, which would be a bit weird, but I'll figure it out. Ignore all of what I just said. Instead, focus on the other 55 minutes of rambling. You don't need to use an IDE like I am doing here, but it is easier than just working with text files, but that's probably all you might be used to, so that's fine. Do that. That's the logs. Oops. This is the mod. No, it's not. No, the mod's a new one. Ignore that. Okay. This is turning into disaster. So I will end the video there and just message me with any questions. Happy to help. Something not sure of or something's not working, I'm sure I can figure it out. Okay, thank you for watching.